Hey, I'm Dave Meister from raindex protocol. Today I wrote a trading strategy which focuses on liquid staking on Flare. Like a lot of other liquid staking tokens, you take your wrapped to this portal and stake it, and then you are eligible for all of the rewards that go into the staked token. We can see here you can take Flare, put it straight in. It will give you the ability to mint some sFLR, and then your sFLR will be receiving rewards from that protocol. This is not anything that I'm working on directly, it's just the sFLR token on the Flare network. You can see the rewards go into the contract regularly from the protocol team, and the exchange rate is listed here. So what I've done is created a trading strategy on raindex that reads the exchange rate on chain. So the strategy knows how much wrapped flare is backing each sFLR. So the exchange rate, which is here, forms the baseline for our options when we go to buy the token. So the exchange rate right now is 1.17196, which means that if you had one sFLR and you unstaked it, this is how much wrapped flare you would get if you could do it instantaneously. You can't, there's a 2-week delay, so the number might change between when you trigger the unstake and when you actually get your tokens. But in theory, that number should only go up because more rewards would be added. So this should be a lower estimate on what you're going to get. I guess unless something catastrophic happened, like the protocol got hacked, but typically this is the worst you're going to get. You're only going to get better than this. So if we look at these exchange rates along here, and then we look at the chart for the exchange rates on dexes, this is on Dex Screener, the sFLR wrapped flare rate, we can see that the price is not that stable. It does not look like this with perfectly flat periods with a sudden jump. It looks like this. So we can see that the last exchange rate jump here was on the 4th of November from 1.13, roughly 1.14, up to the 1.172 where we're at now. So 4th of November is here. So we did have a jump, but this is not a perfectly flat period. Before that, the token actually spent a fair bit of time below the amount of wrapped flare that was backing each one of those sFLRs, which means that if we were buying sFLR during the periods where it was lower than the exchange rate, the official exchange rate, so we go to the secondary market and then buy it, we can bring it back to the portal, unstake, wait the 2 weeks, and then claim the wrapped flare, and we will have more wrapped flare than we spent on that sFLR. If this says 1.17196 and I go to a DEX right now and pay 1.1629, and then I buy some sFLR, and then I immediately go to the unstake page and unstake some sFLR, it'll be locked for 14 days, but at the end of that 14 days, I will get more wrapped flare than what I spent on the secondary market buying this sFLR. So the trading strategy does exactly that. It runs a series of perpetual auctions where the base of the auction ends exactly on the exchange rate. If the exchange rate increases because they add rewards, the trading strategy will automatically readjust itself upwards so that the auctions start trading towards the new exchange rate, knowing that any tokens that it buys, you can immediately unstake them and you'll be up. So the trading strategy is always looking to get you tokens that you can immediately unstake, and then you can take the wrapped flare that you get from the unstaking and put it back in the trading strategy, and you can just loop this every 2 weeks, take out the unstaked wrapped flare, put it back in the trading strategy. It will keep trying to auction off the wFLR into the market whenever the price is below the peg, which is this gap here right now. And you can just keep unstaking and putting it back into the trading strategy as long as you want. Because raindex runs perpetual trading strategies rather than just a once-off limit order or something like that, you don't have to change the auction ever. You can just leave the order running and you can just top it up periodically, let it run, withdraw, unstake, deposit. If we come to raindex.finance, we can see how to configure and deploy this new strategy. If we scroll down here to sell wFLR for sFLR on Flare based on underlying collateral, this is a new one that's been added today. This is different from all the other dollar cost averaging strategies because it's based on the underlying collateral. The baseline of the strategy is dynamic, based on on-chain data, based on the wFLR, which is backing the sFLR contract. If we click through to this, it's fairly easy to configure. We set a budget. So per hour, I'm going to spend, let's say 1,000 wFLR with a maximum trade size of 5,000. So a single auction can never trade more than this in a single go. And then we can set a minimum. The auction will never trade less than this in a single trade. And then the auction period. So the auction is exponential, which means that every so often, the difference between where the auction is now and the baseline, which is for this strategy, the collateral held by the sFLR contract, will halve. So we're exponentially getting closer and closer and closer. We never quite get there, but we're getting closer and closer and closer exponentially. So if I set that to 2 hours, every 2 hours, the difference between where the auction is now and where it's going is going to halve. The start multiplier, when a trade goes through, it's going to decrease the price in this case because we're buying. So it's going to drop down. If I say 1.01, that's 1%, which means that it's going to be asking for 1.1% more than it was before, which has the effect of lowering the price because we're asking for more tokens. We don't need to deposit anything for this example. You get the summary screen where you can review everything. You can set this to whatever you want. These aren't particularly magical numbers. It's fairly arbitrary. You can experiment. You can run multiple orders in parallel. This is all however you want it to be. These are just examples, really. You can edit each of them here. Then you deploy, and then you'll have the ability to deposit the wFLR into the order, and you can monitor the current price that it's asking for. You can see previous trades, and from there you can either take the sFLR out periodically and then unstake it, or you can remove the order, withdraw everything, reparameterize it if you want to try different settings, and then you put a new one up and you can monitor that one in exactly the same way. Feel free to join our Telegram and ping us for questions if you have any, but that's basically it for the new strategy for liquid staking Flare on the Flare network and buying the peg whenever it goes down.